Good evening. You're listening to Bite-Size Book Reviews, and today's book is called The Left-Handed Booksellers of London by Garth Nix. I was reading other stuff by Garth Nix and decided to take a look at what he had written that I had not read yet, and this book caught my attention because the title sounded like it might be kind of funny. The main character is a young woman called Susan Arkshaw. She is about to become an art student, but she arrives in London early in order to look for her father. So she doesn't know who her dad is, and her mom's memories of that time in her life are kind of scattered, so she never really gave Susan a clear first and last name. Instead, Susan sort of following clues based on bits and pieces of information her mom has let slip before, and starts at the house of a man who has been routinely sending her cards and gifts and stuff every year. Only when she gets there, she discovers that there's something a little fishy, the person who enters the door has a sawn-off shotgun in his bag, and she plans to leave, except she ends up stumbling into a really strange encounter between an eccentric young man called Merlin and the man that she had originally come to see. This starts a whole chain of really bizarre events where she gets attacked by giant insects, climbs out windows, and shot at by archers in the park. So she gets drawn into what turns out to be the business of a group of people who are basically referred to as booksellers. They really do run these two bookshops. There's they call it the old bookshop, which sells new books, and the new bookshop, which sells old books. They do actually have a book business, but their main work is actually to police the boundaries, between what they call the old world and the new world. So, for instance, fairies and other more mythic beings, and when they cross over with modern life and stuff. Because for instance, it mentions that when people stumble across certain stories and rituals, their actions and stuff can cause these overlaps and cause incidental workings of magic, and creatures can cause mischief, and it's basically their job to make sure that these two worlds stay separated and that people stay safe. Although it sounds a bit like they may not have always gone about that in really good ways, I guess. Sorry, that's my dog. Rachel, stop it. Okay, so through her interactions with Merlin, Susan finds that discovering who her father is might really have bigger implications than she originally thought, and at the same time Merlin is trying to figure out what happened to his mother, who got killed several years ago, and they discover that the day his mother died was actually also Susan's birthday. So I think something I liked about this book was the fact that there were a lot of mythological creatures. I enjoy stories that talk about different monsters and stuff like that, giant wolves and their goblin market. I think there's, a lot of it is really similar, I suppose, to some more fairy world type stuff you get in other stories, but authors always have their own spin on these creatures, and that's always something that I find entertaining. And the author definitely has a kind of sense of humor in the tone of the story. Something that I did not like as much was the fact that I felt this book sort of dropped you into the world without a lot of explanation. The background I gave with Susan's arrival in London, a lot of these details are given somewhat more retrospectively, and a lot of the events can feel a little bit random because there isn't a clear reasoning. You don't really know why all these things are happening, and the consequence of that piled on top of the use of a lot of strange creatures and circumstances makes it so that it's a little bit hard, I think, to have a continuous understanding of how the story unfolds, if that makes any sense. I think it was really more that I wanted more context, I wanted more details. I would have liked a little bit more history, and the story mentions that it's a more peaceful time in the booksellers history, and I think maybe that's part of it too. Whereas I think I would have liked to hear a bit more about the work that they used to do when things like the Old World and New World and the boundaries were a lot more active. So, oh, and one more thing. To explain the title with the whole left-handed and right-handed booksellers, so this just refers to the different positions that people in this family take. I think it was a misunderstanding for me because I originally thought it had to do with, people's dominant hands, but actually it's more about the specific jobs they have, whereas the left-handed ones sound like it's the booksellers that use weaponry and engage more in combat and might get sent out to fight monsters and stuff, whereas the right-handed ones are the booksellers who specialize in things like magic and research and things like that. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting read, pretty light, I guess.